Welcome to the Pineapple Perspective with your host, yours truly, Troy Hooper. This is always sponsored by Pepper Lunch Restaurants, pepperlunchrestaurants.com. And if you're interested in franchising, we'd love to talk to multi unit and multi brand sophisticated franchisees. That's the commercial. Let's get into the conversation. I am truly honored, and I say it a lot about these episodes being special, but this is a gentleman today that's going to be on our show that if I could, I'd do a 5-part, 10-hour series with because we just chop it up. We've been chopping it up in the green room probably longer than the show's going to last already. But this guy truly, and he I think knows a little bit, but I just look up to him. He's just an absolute beacon and a light in this industry. He's somebody I ask for advice and insight from as often as I can, and I do my best to be in his presence as often as possible because I learn every time. And I'm really honored to have Andrew K. Smith, CEO and co-founder of the Savory Fund, on the Pineapple Perspective today. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Troy. And I agree. The chopping it up in the green room before was my favorite part. So this has got to do a lot to make sure that it succeeds that.
Yeah, the problem is we get to a point where we might talk about too much and feel like we're regurgitating it. So I was like, let's not get into any meat and potatoes. Let's just chit chat and then we'll get into it. But Andrew, really glad to have you. I think it's going to be a phenomenal conversation. As anytime you and I get together, I leave with a ton of value. And the goal of this whole thing is to give value to everyone in the restaurant industry across, no matter where they are, what they do, where they've come from, where they're going. But we always start every show with one question: what does hospitality mean to you?
Hospitality is an interesting word because I was in the tech industry before this, as you know, Troy, and the tech industry has zero hospitality to it. Right? Like I just think it's pretty bland. It's unemotional. I don't think that within the tech hemisphere there's really a sense of belonging. And when I entered this industry, it was interesting to me how hospitality is really, about creating a sense of belonging. I think that the thing that I learned the most, that kinda got stung by the hospitality bee when I was a tech CEO. I sold my last business, and I joined my wife that was actually the restaurateur. Shauna was the owner of our first restaurant, which was a bakery and cafe, and I just watched how fun she had with her team, her patrons, her clients. It was just this sense of belonging when you were in there, and people felt seen, they felt valuable, they felt valued, they felt comfortable. And when I saw that, I'm like, man, I want to be part of that. You kind of feel FOMO when you're not in it. And so it was easy for me to get stung by the bee early on with kind of the sense of hospitality because it's my personality too. I like not only talking to you, Troy, but others as well within our industry because we're excited about this industry and what's to come, not just because we're building brands and making money. I mean, it's really secondary to me. I like the hospitality angle because it's a true sense of belonging. I feel not only with my guests that way, but I feel that way with others like you, Troy, where it's like, I just feel like we're a family trying to bring the greatest brands and the greatest food to the people, of our communities, and sharing that hospitality with them is truly special to me.
That's a beautiful answer. I'm going to dig a little deeper. I'm going to make you go back a little bit because before that hospitality bug bit you, this is just who you are. You obviously in the tech industry had to have had more of this personality. Maybe it shines through more. Maybe you're more comfortable. Maybe you're more encouraged to be more yourself if you couldn't have done that in the tech industry. But that ethos, that sense that you've developed since joining your wife and starting this journey, where does that come from before that? Where how that opened up? That was there. It opened up. There's something in your life that said, I'm the kind of guy that when the hospitality bug bit him, it sort of caused that flower to open. But tell me where you think your belief system around what hospitality really means to you comes from.
It probably was earlier in my career. My parents, my father was a doctor, a dentist, was an educator at Northwestern, and that's why I was born and raised in Chicago. And I always watched with my parents not only their positivity, but their sense of serving community, of being charitable, of being individuals that felt like a rising tide lifts all ships. And I watched that from a young age. So it was kind of born into me, number one. But number two, as I was in tech, you go to these meetings in tech and these networking events, Troy, and everybody would be there and they would hold their cards so tight to their chest. Troy, what are you working on? We're like, well, I can't tell you. I'm like, I swear our technologies are not competitive. I don't know why you're acting that way. For me, I was like, this is what I'm doing. Let me just tell you, and maybe you can help me by me sharing what I'm dealing with. So people were always a little bit like, what is Andrew doing? He's like telling us all of his trade secrets and stuff. I'm like, I'm really not. And plus, even if you knew my trade secrets, as we both know, Troy, execution is the difficult thing, not the ideas, the things that we know. So, I think that when I got into the food and beverage industry, I already had kind of the sense of, I wanna share what I'm doing, I wanna give everybody all of my knowledge, and I'm hoping that they're gonna do something back to me by sharing as well that I did for them. And that's why whenever you and I talk, Troy, or you talk with others in the industry too, I just feel like this is what we're doing. That was one of the main reasons why 7 years ago we kicked off restaurantology. I would go to conferences and I felt like still people would hold their cards a little bit close to their chest. I'm like, "I'm just gonna do our own conference where we can get together and we can just share best practices, all of our secrets." Because as soon as you leave, execution is still hard for all of us. And if I can just take that one little step of difficulty out of people's way, I feel like I've done my job of giving back. So, I feel like in the hospitality thing, I feel like you're giving, you're treating, you're serving, it's that intersection of humans, in the hospitality industry, and I feel like that's something that's not only born in me, but it's something I always want to do, and that's what Savory's about too, is if we do a deal with someone, 1 or 2 or 3 brands a year, we'll probably do 3 this year, so a landmark year. We'll talk to 3, 4, 500 other founders. I never leave those conversations without imparting something to help them grow if I can't help them with investing in them. So, I just feel like a rising tide lifts all ships. I'm not in competition with anyone, and I feel like that is a real limiting factor for humans if you just think, "It's all about me and my business, and I'm gonna compete with you, and for me to win, you have to fail, Troy." It is just not it's not in me, and I think it's the dumbest way to think. So, that's why I'm built the way I am.
Yeah, I think look, you walk the talk, and you don't really do that much talking. It's not like you're out there espousing this belief system. I asked you to come on the show and you said yes, but you're not like on a PR tour with a book and saying I got a keynote every conference. Like you're just doing it, and that's what I admire about you and Shauna and Josh and the whole team at Savory. I've been a big fan for a long time, as you know. I'm not quiet about that, but it's because you just do. You do, and you do well, and you do it a high quality, and I think you do what you say you do it for real, and so I think that really
Well, we'll
matters.
try.
Yeah, and look, everybody's gonna have their detractors, that doesn't matter. What matters is that and your team knows, and you've built a beautiful culture of people that are rowing in the same direction. I wanted to say, I wanted to amplify or echo a little bit about what you said. D Giving without expectation is the unlock. I mean, I think there's a handful of core values or guiding principles that those of us that get along and seem to know each other and admire each other sort of share. And in that is giving without expectation. Every time I ask, you're available, and you just say yes. And it might be 10 minutes, it might be an hour. It doesn't matter. Might be walking down an aisle, and might be sitting down in your office. Doesn't matter. I think those of us that really believe in that and do that, it just unlocks everything. I get so much more out of life, and so much more comes my way. That's an opportunity, and that's interesting, and that's informative and educational because you just give and you don't have an expect. That to me, that's hospitality, right? Somebody comes to your house, you put out snacks and you put out drinks and you make them comfortable and you make sure their the air co is the right temperature. You just make sure they're good, yeah, and you don't even if it's cheaper.
Without any expectation to get anything back, right?
Yeah,
No
I
expectation.
serve beer and I don't drink beer, but I'll serve it because that's what you like. And so it's the same in business, I think. And the other thing you said that I don't want to let go, that I talk about a lot, is the network effect. It is just asking. It is just saying, "Hey, I've got one question. Do you have 10 minutes?" Or get in that room and listen. Go to Restaurantology, go to the investor summit at Create, which I'll be at. I go out of my way to get in these rooms to learn from not just you, but the entire cohort of people like you that have done what I want to do, have achieved what I want to achieve, and have placed the bricks in front of me, and I just got to follow the yellow brick road. I think the network effect is just not well understood. I think people are shy and afraid and fear of rejection. I don't know what it is, but the reality is, especially in this industry, like you said, and you illuminated it, and I'm just amplifying it. Coming from another industry into hospitality, it is remarkable how open and available and how much we do want to help each other and how quote non-competitive generally it is. I think that's a beautiful thing, and I'm glad that there's other folks out there that believe that and live that so that we can keep this book open, so to speak, so it doesn't we don't change. I don't want this industry to think that, oh, I can't talk to each other.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was interesting early on, just to make a comment about that is, I remember early on when we were in this industry. I've been in the industry now 17 years. We've, opened, operated nearly 500 restaurants ourselves, and we have a lot of analogs that we can point to say what worked, what didn't work, what's working now, what doesn't work, what used to work. But one of the things I remember, Troy, very vividly is I felt this sense of this like badge of honor to not tell people that I had any errors in my business because that's what I thought that the industry was built on, and to not talk about the mistakes we've made. And there's always the saying of like your greatest, the lessons are learned from your failures. But when you have failures, for some reason you don't want to talk about them. And it's like, no, I think it's astounding to me when I meet with founders and say, yeah, I went to this market. I remember standing on that corner going, I'm looking at the data, I'm looking at the traffic, I'm looking at this is going to be the best site I've ever done. I am so smart. Worst business I'd ever opened, right? When we opened it up. And I lost 7 figures on that site. And I tell everybody all the time, it's not all about data. It's not all about gut instinct. There are just sometimes it's not going to work, but at least you tried. And I'm glad I tried. And so when we share some of the times that we make mistakes and things don't go the way that it brings down this barrier where people are like, oh, so I can talk about my failures too. And it's a safe area, safe zone. And I just wish all of us would be a little bit more real and say, man, that's hard, or this is not going as well as it is, but this is going well. So we're trying to map this more in all of our other brands or in what we're doing day to day. I think it'd be healthy for everyone listening. It's okay to point out your failures, learn from them, pivot, and then make them better.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. As you're talking, it's kind of interesting. People come to me all the time. Troy, you got so much going on. You're doing so much. Oh, all this success. This looks great. It's amazing. And I, in that moment, will say, "Look, you have no idea. Like you have not seen me get my butt chewed out, or seen me put my foot in my mouth, which I do from time to time, or you've not seen me not lead the way I want to lead. I have a very high aspiration for how I want to lead, and I'd never want to be the guy that says on camera and on stage, in a microphone, "This is what I believe. This is how we should lead. This is how you should lead." And then when I don't do it, I am very self-critical of that, and I shrink down and I'm quiet and I eat it, and then I think about how I can do better and what do I need to do right now to turn that around. Because the worst case scenario is if I'm sitting here talking to you and I'm preaching from the mountaintop. And if my team is sitting in the back of the table going, that guy is so full of crap, I don't ever want to be that. So you're never going to be one for one. You're never going to be 100, right? But you got to reset. You got to pull in and you got to go back to your core and your center and you got to get back to your roots and just admit that you strayed and admit that you got distracted or admit you got glassy eyes and greener pastures for something else temporarily, and you ignored your principle or you got away from your rule book or whatever that is. I don't do enough of that loudly. I tend to try to do it on stage if I'm saying this is what you should do and how I've done it and why it worked. I usually try to say, well, here's the 3 or 5 ways I've done it and it's failed. So I know what you're feeling. Like, please understand, I didn't just come out of the box and get it right. I failed 27 times and then I figured it out. I just want to tell you that I figured it out so you don't have to fail 27 times. Maybe you'll fail 3 times, but I covered the other 24 for you. That's really what I'm trying to do. But you're right. We all need to be a little bit more open, and out loud about what isn't working. Because I think to your point and my point too is let's save somebody else's pain and accelerate their path to success. That's really my goal.
That's right. And when you see people that succeed, it's incredible. So many times I've told people like if you're focused on your own success and not the success of everyone else around you, it is such an anticlimactic summit when you hit that summit. It is anticlimactic if you're not there with a group of people. It's a lonely place.
Andrew, we've gotten off to a fast start, almost 15 minutes into this conversation. Why don't we tell the audience what Savory Fund is?
Savory Fund is really it's an extension of what we started, which was we were operators. We were operators. We were master franchise unit operators of Neater's Bakery and Cafe. We had 50 of those that we built ground up nationwide. We had 87 Little Caesars. And we found ourselves at this crossroads of do we want to continue to be master franchisees and developers of these large areas and territories? Or do we want to take meetings with some of these individuals that are coming to meeting with us with these emerging brands? And what we talk about as emerging brands is brands that have really gone through kind of the impetus of the curation of an idea. It's not venture anymore. It's not ideation. It's not curation. It is Now we're ready to scale. We've proven all of that out, and we're ready to get to the next level. The problem is that chasm is a pretty difficult chasm for most, and that is, how do you open up stores now 500 miles away from your heritage market? How do you go from 400 employees to 3,000 employees? And how do you build an above store leadership team? And how do you do it without a bunch of money? Because it is a costly business model to be in, not just this industry, all industries. When you grow, it takes money to grow. So, because of that, I knew we had the wherewithal, we had the resources, we had the playbook, and we had the team. And so we sold off all of our franchise businesses, Troy, successfully, and we laid out a plan to raise a private equity fund behind our team called Savory. So we pivoted in 2017. We raised our first fund in 2018 of $100 million, and made 5 investments into some emerging elite brands. Raised our second fund in 2021, only a couple years later. Bought 6 brands, and then we just kicked off our fund three this last year for 200 million. Already have 3 brands. Have our fourth brand that's close to being under contract, but we're just looking for the emerging elite. I think the brands that are the next brands that are household names here in the next 5 to 10 years, but people that are doing things differently within the flavor segment that they're in. And not only do we give them the money, but we put the resources behind it too. We have 85 people in our office. When we invest into that brand, we put the entire force of Savory behind them to really focus on 3 things: the systems, the process, and the people, and make sure that we can fill in those holes until we actually can get the team hired. But really, we just serve as partners. We serve as thought leaders, as support. We get in the weeds with them. We get in the trenches because we've been there our entire careers. And so we're not really just the money. We're really the team, the playbook, and the money. And so Savory is kind of a unique operating private equity firm.
Yeah, private equity is just a structure. Ultimately, you're really a corporate owner, multi-brand corporate ownership group, just funded through a private equity's fund model, right?
Through our own capital,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so you own and operate. And one thing I'll illuminate that you didn't say for people that don't know is what I said there. It is a focused as a corporate growth model. You build, own, and operate every single store. Every employee is yours. You're not in the franchise business model today as a functional structure of how you grow your businesses. So you've chosen what really is a slower, methodical, strategic, and much more expensive quote investment route to grow a brand, or in this case, 9, 10 brands and growing. Let's get in your head. Why did you choose that? Why is this the model that works for you and delivers the results? And those results we can talk about in some of these exits, but why do you think that is building the best business?
Yeah, so listen, everybody has their perspective, and I would say no one I don't have the right to say that your perspective, Troy, on franchising or someone else's perspective is wrong. I don't think it's wrong. I'm just going off of data, and a lot of the data has proven that if you franchise too early and you franchise too fast, you can blow up a brand. And the problem is that there's a lot of dead bodies on the road of franchising, and I think you know that. And those dead bodies on the road, typically, they go back to this moment in time where they say, "You know what would be easy? If we have this great 1 or 2 or 3 unit concept, is just flip on all of the work to franchisees. They pay me money, they pay me a royalty, and all I have to do is give them my recipes and my brand." And if you keep it that simple, if just to that level, I think it's a mistake for brands that are really great brands, because they change from a restaurant concept to now an enterprise of support, technology support, advice, motivation, vision, R&D, all of the things that they don't have the skill set to do. So for us, we made a decision early on. What would curb some of that risk to being less risky for our franchise partner to join forces with us, and make it so that we're not dependent on them to survive? So, in our minds, Swig, for instance, Swig is and will forever always be, Troy, the original creator of the dirty soda craze. And there is a new conference coming up that Informa's doing on. I don't know if you've even seen it launched yet. They're going to announce it, but it is a beverage conference, and we are going to be keynoting that, myself and the CEO of Swig, and we're going to talk about where dirty soda came from, because it actually came from a customer in the drive-through of Swig saying the word. We didn't even come up with it. It was a customer. No one has ever come up with it. Sonic did come up with it. Nobody came up with it. A customer did in our drive-through. But the reason why I even bring up Swig, we could have franchised the hell out of that, Troy, so many times. But what we decided to do is to say, let's put in the right process, system, and team into that foundation of that business. Let's prove it out, not in heritage, but in multiple markets to say that that dirty soda craze would work in multiple markets other than just Utah. We also want to prove that it's as profitable as can be so that you, Troy, if you came to franchise with us, would know 2 things. 1, Andrew, are you in the game and do you even know what you're doing? Yes, we are in the game. We own 50, 60, 70 of these. We operate every day. So we are in the game. 2, can I be profitable as a franchisee? Yes, you can be profitable even after paying me my royalty and my marketing fee. You will be tremendously profitable, and we have the proof now. So what does that do then, Troy? It really galvanizes this partnership between franchisee and franchisor because the franchisor is not dependent on the franchisee to get that royalty payment and to get the royalty fees to live and pay their salaries. We lived on our own with Swig before we kicked off franchising. We didn't need franchising. The reason you should franchise is to gain market penetration at the same time that you're growing the business and not be dependent on it, but to actually build out your platform. It's really, really smart. So we have launched franchising with Swig and it's been tremendously successful. We have launched franchising with Houston Hot Chicken, but we own dozens of them and we will own dozens more alongside our franchisees. And it's more of a symbiotic and galvanized partnership if both of you are in the game and you're not dependent on them paying you your fee. You want to see them succeed for the purposes of them succeeding. So all I would say is we're not opposed to it. We just feel like it's the right timing is when you should do it. But Savory will be involved in franchise businesses as the corporate franchisor body, but I would say it's atypical for us to do it because during the time we own brands, we believe it's a little early.
No, that's a fantastic cover of how you covered it up there. I'll say this. I've only said this a couple times publicly. I don't know why I don't say it louder. I'm very proud of being in the franchise business today because I put my foot down in 2015 and said, if I'm going to be involved in the franchise business, if those who I have attracted to my partnership and my core group of executives are going to be in the franchise business, we are going to do it the right way. We are not going to make all those mistakes or make all those false promises or make it about making the money. We're going to have this mindset of the franchisee must succeed and we must prove this before all the things around what you said in a lot of ways. And it's just absolute truth. Between 2015 and 2018, 2019, if you had said to me, Troy, I'm thinking about franchising, I would have done everything I could to talk you out of it. It was just not done really well most of the time. 80% probably failure rate in my mind. I would say 8 out of 10 times no. And then my next evolution now is, well, do you want to leave the restaurant business and go get into this other business and be a service agent and have this mindset that you owe them, that you serve them, that you're a subordinate and you have to give them what they need to succeed? Is that the business that it's a core question of do you understand what that means? You know, and then now I've even evolved to do you have any idea how much money it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, and how many skills you don't know you don't have? You cannot do this alone. And be very careful who you recruit or who you hire or who you get as consultants, because therein lies a minefield of wasted time, money, and resources that you cannot recover if you do it wrong once. It's almost unrecoverable if you really blow it out of the gate, right? That's my take on franchising, but I'm in the franchise business.
No, you listen, and so are we. I mean, we have franchise businesses now. We're selling franchises right now for some of our brands. We're in it too, Troy, right? So I'm not saying it's good or bad, but man, did you just say some nuggets of value for people to hear. The only thing I would add to that too, that would just extend what you said is to beware of or be of the right mindset when you franchise is everybody thinks that when you're the franchisor, you're at the top of the pyramid. I'm I'm this guy and all of you franchisees are below me and you better do what I say. And what happens with that, Troy, is there's this natural friction between franchisor or franchisee always. And I've always thought to myself, why is there that franchisee, franchisor friction? Because I've been a franchisee before, and it's because one, they don't listen to you when you're on the front lines, and two, they act like they're on the top of the pyramid. What I've told all of our brands is it should be inverted. And if you see this on YouTube or however you post it, you'll see my hands are inverted. The inversion is I'm the franchisor and I'm at the bottom of the triangle, and all of the weight of the system and my franchisees are on my head to make sure that I hold, support, and make them successful. And if you don't think that way, you should not be a franchisor. You just shouldn't be, right? Because there's that friction because they know that you think you're at the top of the pyramid and all they care about is taking my money and me paying them the royalty, and they don't listen to me. Man, you can solve all your problems if you think partnership. I was on a call, 2 weeks ago with a group that's very well capitalized. You would want them as a franchise partner, Pepper Lunch and others that you're doing. And I said, "Well, what are you involved in now?" And they said, "Well, we're involved in the system and they have a lot of units." And I'm like, "Well, why do you want to stop that system?" And they're like, "Because it doesn't feel like a partnership and we're so tired of being treated unfairly." But we've talked to franchisees of yours in one of your systems. I'm not going to say the system name, but the franchisees have said, "This is a true partnership where they care about our success and they're responsive and they listen to us. Just because of that, they wanna be part of our system." So all I would say is, that's all you have to do as a franchisor. Treat them like your partners, true partners, and you'll have more success.
Yeah, I try to talk about it as much as I can. There's a lot of videos of me on LinkedIn trying to get this point across, and I'm very candid and transparent on these discovery days, these calls with people. I will say candidly, we have probably turned down 10 times as many franchisees as we've accepted in our system because it's not a fit. It's not the right mindset. You're not here to save me. You're not here to tell me that I don't know because I only have 9 stores in the US open, blah, blah, blah. The point is what you said, and I very few people have ever done the inverse pyramid to me, and I don't remember where I learned it 25 some years ago, but it was a pivotal change in my mindset as a leader. Is as a leader, you are at the bottom of that pyramid, and everybody's on your shoulders, and you owe them, and that's servant leadership. At the end of the day, it's really just comes down to servant leadership. If you have a servant heart,
It is.
you're going to walk in the room and seek first to understand, then be understood. And look, Stephen Covey absolutely changed my life at 26 years old by accident. I got a day planner that had was a Franklin Covey day planner, and it had all these sayings, and I was like, "What is all this?" And I picked up a book one day, and it gave me a foundation. It gave me a framework to work with, and that's really where it comes from. But
Unbelievable framework, and to be honest with you, I can look out at my office window right here, and the Franklin Covey building is right down the street
that's
from us.
amazing. Yeah.
That whole structure has changed so many people's lives and business leaders. And it's interesting too, Troy, because it's all so simple, right? Like servant leadership. And I just feel like if you have the mentality as a franchisor that, wow, they're so lucky to be in my system. They're so lucky to be opening businesses I own. Boy, you need to switch that in your head. You have to say, I'm so lucky people want to do business with my brand.
Yeah, every day I ask myself and I remind our team, ask yourself, what can I do for them today? How can I make their life easier? How can I make them more successful? What can I share with them? What can I learn from over here and bring to them so that they can stay focused and we just feed them with resources and knowledge and experience and tools and just best practices and what somebody else is doing. We have a very unusual system. We have a separate marketing company so that we don't commingle the marketing brand fund that comes in. We have a separate marketing company, and all of our franchisees share a scheduling platform for all of their organic and paid social media advertising, right? And they all can borrow from each other, and we borrow from them, and we give them
Oh, cool.
all the same. We're all basically living in the bucket together, right? We're all in this together. You do something really
So good.
cool, I want to share it with them. If they want to emulate it, repeat it, good for them. Otherwise, they can just post it. Just take it and use it. And it's the same for us. So it's this collaborative partnership community mindset, right? Which is I think is what's really actually
You know
important.
when I saw that the most? I don't know if you saw it too, Troy, but people have always asked me like, "Well, how did you guys do during the whole epidemic or pandemic?" You know? And I know that it sounds so weird to say this, but I'd be like, "I go back and live that again." They're like, "You would?" I'm like, "No, no, not the sickness, not people being ill, not people passing away." I hated seeing that for families. I'm seeing from a business standpoint, Was it not so cool during that time, Troy, to be galvanizing as a unity or as a community in F&B industry of what are you doing, Troy, that you're is working right now for you? How are you pivoting? What tech are you using? How do we meet our patrons where they're at? What you're saying is to do the same thing within the franchisor-franchisee relationship. If you can do that, it's magical. It's a magical bond that you create within a partnership when everyone's leaning in for each other's benefit, and that's why I say I'd go back to 2020, 21 and live it again because it was a magical time.
Yeah, I agree. What drives me nuts now is a few late now, at least 2.5, 3 years out of really the core piece of that experience is menu creep and all these old ideologies that are coming back in. Like, no, no, shrink that menu back
Don't
down.
do that.
Remember what you did in COVID? You picked the 5 items you sold the most of, the people wanted, that was different from everybody else, and that's all you did because you didn't have the staff to execute 36, 27, 48 menu items. Like, let's get back to basics. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, and the community and the camaraderie, and honestly, and very true, the COVID pandemic, actually, the long lasting tail of that for me is what we started this conversation with. I think more than ever, this industry is more open, honest, communicative, willing to share,
It
willing
is.
to support. It just forced us all to kind of like look at our neighbor and go, what are you doing? How are you doing that? Can I borrow something? Can I share something with you? It just forced us to get closer. And I have felt this long tail openness inside this industry since then. And I think before that, honestly, before that, as much as you think hospitality, because you were here before that, is so open and so willing. But from a guy who's been in it 33 years, it wasn't. Everybody was my recipe, my secret. I'm doing it better. There was a real closed, nobody was talking to each other. And now it's just share, 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 open, open, open. Let's all succeed. To your point,
It's so
rising
good to
tide
hear that.
for
I didn't
sure.
know that. I have liked that about the industry and the other, counterparts that you and I both have that we know and that we talk to. It was interesting just, talking to Brett Schuleman from Cava the other day. We got on the phone and we're just talking, like, totally open about everything that I'm doing, everything that's going on with him, everything that's he's trying at Cava, what's to come. He didn't care. He was just sharing all of his tips and tricks. And if I was a Mediterranean concept, I think he'd still share it with me because he's about abundance mentality. That's just Brett. And that's why he's a great leader, and that's why he's a stud as a leader too, of just saying, "I want everyone to succeed, and I love the industry succeeding together." That's why that we should all be doing that.
Absolutely. Let's shift gears just a little bit. The Savory Fund, as its core function, raises money, looks for, and evaluates emerging brands. Let's just say 5 to 25 stores, sort of starting point generally. And you get a chance to look at lots of brands at a very high level, a quick peek, quick introduction. You choose to spend a little more time looking and spending time investigating, and then this funnel ends up at the bottom with you're getting serious with a handful of brands every year. And to your point, 1 to 3, three being a big year for you on an acquisition partnership, trajectory. But talk to me about when you get to that point, why do the 1 to 3 brands win? And why do another 20 to 30, maybe that could have been your choice, not become your choice in part because of some fundamentals and some missing components? Talk a little bit about those thoughts that you think are a concern to you and people aren't paying attention to.
Yeah, it's such a good question, and I've never been asked it that way, so that's a good question, and I'll answer it this way. There's qualitative and quantitative that we look at. You just have to, right? For all of our partnerships we all enter to in life, you should be looking at both, not just the upside, the money side of it, how good it's gonna be, how much we can all make together. That's a part of it. You have to look at it. It's gotta be worth everyone's time because we all have only have limited time on the earth here, Troy. But there's also the qualitative, and that is who are the individuals that I'm working with? And it's interesting. I don't pass on people because I'm like, "Oh, they're not good individuals." It's more the psychology behind what they're trying to create. And so I would start high level by saying, is a family-owned legacy or a family-owned business that's a lifestyle business to you, or is it a legacy business? And I would say most of them fall to the wayside pretty quickly when they say, "Well, no, I wanna grow a lot of stores." Okay, why? Well, because I want to be able to take $1 million, $2 million distribution a year. I want to go sit on my boat. I want to travel the world. Okay, that's a lifestyle business. That's not a legacy business. You're built around creating something different than a legacy business. Legacy business is rolling capital into growth because that's the best use of capital. It is putting in the systems and process and investing into those early on so that when you are 50, 100, 200, 500 units, you have that stuff already figured out. So it's a very different psyche. So I would say most of them don't make it because they don't know they want a lifestyle business, but they do. And so we help them understand that. And just so you know, we don't fault them for that, right, Troy? I mean, there's some days probably, and I'll be very open and honest on your podcast here. There's days that Sean and I will be driving, and she's like, "Should we just go open like 1 or 2 really cool, restaurants that we have these ideas for, and just own those 2 and do nothing else and just have a lifestyle business?" So there's nothing wrong with it. We've even thought of it ourselves, but it's just you have to know which one it is. So pick your lane and know what you are. And if you don't know what you are, talk it out with someone else that's a counterpart of yours. Talk to Troy about it and say, what am I? Am I a lifestyle driven guy or girl, or am I a legacy? Because legacy is very different. It's longer time term vision, lots of stuff that happens along the way. You don't make more money along the way. You're building something that's going to be around decades and decades from now, most likely. And that's what we're trying to build here at Savory. So that's probably early on. The other reason we get into it and then we say probably isn't great to do this deal is because of the quantitative. And the quantitative is this. People that say, well, listen, I've got, millions of dollars AUV and per unit. Great. So what do you do AUV? Well, I do 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, whatever. Okay. Well, what does it cost to build your restaurants? It costs $4 million. Okay. That doesn't pencil. Your cash on cash is going to be so poor, and it is so poor because of your margins that it's actually not a scalable business. Well, of course it is. Look at our top line, and it's like it's just not scalable. I love your brand. I love your food. I love you, Troy. But your concept won't scale at the level that is a good investment return for investors of any kind or shape. So that's another group of them that don't ever make the cut because it's like, unless you can figure out your brand and make sure that there's true cash on cash, which is you have X number of dollars in sales, you have X number of dollars of profit. If 3 times that number of profit, so if you're making $300,000 a year in profit at the store, if your costs are not 900,000 or less to build a new unit, you really probably should go focus on that before you add more units. So that's another reason that they don't get there. And then the last thing I would say is, you gotta look at your competition out there because although I just said earlier on this, I don't look at competition as people being competitive to me. You gotta look in the segment, right? And say, if there were 50 different pepper lunch concepts, Savory would probably not look at a pepper lunch concept because I'd be like, "Pepper Lunch is doing it amazing. Why do I wanna go compete directly with Troy and Pepper Lunch when they already have scale, they already have a head start, and there's not enough differentiation?" Now, if it was 30, 40% different in the way they did it or the vibe or the type of flavors, we can both succeed and we can both take a run at it, and then we would look at it. But most of them also don't make it because it's just too close to someone that I think has beat them to the punch. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And something you've said, oh, I think it's a core tenet of restaurannology because every time I've been, I've actually heard this, and you've mentioned it to me more than once, and I've heard you say it on stage, is really around discipline. But let me pivot from the word discipline because that might be taken incorrectly. It's really to me. I wrote my notes about depth and breadth. It's about you started this off. What does Savory care about? Process, systems, people, right? Those all can be qualitative and quantitative, but process, systems, and
They all
people,
can be.
right? You have some processes, you have some systems, and I love the people. People are great. People may not know everything they know. We're here for that. We got you covered. We're going to put people in place to help you out. But you talk a lot about the I's are not dotted, the T's are not crossed, the dials are not really finely tuned in your business. You got to go back and get that stuff fixed and get that stuff finished. And what you were trying to do is you were trying to get to 5, 10, 15 stores so you could get investment or you could get bought or you could get money to grow, but you did it in haste, you did it fast, you did it sloppy, or you didn't really do it all the way. And so there's a lot of pieces and parts missing that don't give Savory or an investor comfort that this is on a strong foundation. I really view it as a shaky
That's
foundation
right.
or a foundation not fully built yet. And I talk a lot about that in franchising. 90% of people who go to franchising have not done any of the homework, or they've done 3 out of the 3,000 things. It's like, guys, you never even got close to building a foundation that would allow you the opportunity to scale and be successful and be competitive in this space. So talk a little bit about that, because that I think is really important to your ethos. I think it's really important to the success of Savory, and I think it's something that every founder and founding group and brand creator and emerging brand operator really needs to hear.
Years ago, I did an interview for Fast Casual magazine, and I think back to that interview all the time because it was one of my more enjoyable conversations. Because the editor that was doing the piece and my conversation, it synced, and I think back about that, and you fast forward now to 2025, and I feel the same way, and that is everybody always asks me, like, "How many units are you adding this year in this brand?" Or, "How many units are you adding in this brand?" And I'm like, "That is not the benchmark for success. It is just not the benchmark of success." And now when people say, "Well, how many units are you adding?" Well, we have this many units when they're doing incredible, and we're really focused on these systems and process, and now we're not 23% Sleebada, we're 25% Sleebada. We're crushing it at the store level, and our franchisees, if it's a franchise business, are making money also, and because of that, we have 40 or 50 units in the queue to build. I always try to help them understand because of this, then this. And that is what I mean by discipline, is you've gotta make sure your house is in order and it makes sense to grow. Don't think so much about speed. We have brands right now in our portfolio, bought it with 5 units, 25 units today, and the founders are like, "Let's go. Let's build another 25. Let's go." And I'm like, "We have a lot of restaurants." And imagine the value of this enterprise and the value for you guys as shareholders. If we could eke it at a 3 or 4% sleeve it off out of 25 units and $7,500 million in revenue, that's without adding any more risks, any more rooftop. Focus on the disciplined approach of let's make these rooftops as profitable as possible. And that's where people are getting it wrong. It's build a great core business. You'll be more valuable than having more rooftops. Because every rooftop you open, Troy, you know this better than anybody.
It's another opportunity to fail.
It's another sleeve of risk, right? Or make sure that the franchise partners that you have now have the resources and the support they need to be successful. Because when you sign another franchisee, sure, you get the upfront 30, 40, $50,000 fee, but then now you just sign up another streak of liability that you have to support for success. So that's what I think about with disciplined growth and disciplined thought process is show me that you think with discipline and not with just emotion. It can't just be emotion.
Yeah, absolutely 100% concur. Everything. It's just the right way. And I think you guys are far more patient, far more strategic, deeper thinking. I think you're just more willing to keep dialing that dial and just take it as it comes and grow smartly, and it's paid off, right? At the end of the day, you've had exits, you have the opportunity to have better and better and bigger opportunities and acquisition. Your funds are growing because people see the results. Results matter. Look, you're one of the mentors in my life. I have one that calls me all the time. His name's Jim Mises. Hi, Jim. And I'm so grateful and so lucky to have him. But he calls me, and I swear to you, I don't have to ask him a question. He will start the conversation with, what is going on with your unit level economics? And are you taking care of your franchisees? And what do you mean when you say this, that? Like, how? Do you know how you did that? Do you know why that happened? What did you have to do with it? What did the franchisee bring to the table that you learned from them? It's just this challenging mindset of, don't get too big for your britches. Get off that horse. Don't be so proud of the achievements of unit count or sales or any of that. All that matters is individual, single store, one store at a time success. And what can you do to make it that one better? That's all that matters. You don't keep your eye on that prize. It's a house of cards and it all comes down. And by the way, plenty of brands to point out. We won't name them here. We can all just look at the list of closures, failures, bankruptcies, blah 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 that have happened throughout history. and you can
And
usually go
thank you to
back.
them for giving us that textbook of what not to do.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Yes, you've shown us the way to not go. I wish more people would look at that before they start going and, don't go down that road. Andrew, always an absolute pleasure. I'm going to ask you one or two rapid fire fun questions. Very important because Swig was first. What is your dirty soda order when you go through the Swig drive through?
All right. Well, I'm gonna go in the order to not make me like look stupid, but it's either if I want a Dr. Pepper, it's the Texas Tab. If it's a water, I'll get the Strawberry Breeze because it's amazing and no calories. And then if I don't want to look like a complete goofball, I will order the Beach Babe. Ones you'll remember.
All right, Andrew, another question. I've asked my wife to join me in this side of the hospitality career after 16 years in her career. She is supporting and helping and participating in a variety of things that we have got going on. But your wife is the CEO of the operating of this business at Savory Fund. So just tell everybody what it's like and how you manage working with your wife every day and going home every night.
Yeah, it's always a question I get asked, and I love answering it because it comes from a deep part of my heart, and that is I love it because I love her and I love her motivation and her drive and her tenacity and her grit. Love her intelligence. I love her discernment. And I'll tell you right now, whether it's our wives that's going to work with you or others that are listening or not, or spouses, whatever it is, they should be your best counterpart, right? They should be your best partner. They should be the one that you rely on and you lean on. And so when people say, "Well, how does it work?" I'm like, "Well, why wouldn't it work? She's my wife, right? Like I respect her and she respects me." But the way that we've made it work over time, and I'll just tell you, I've met your wife, Troy, and she's a lethal one, just like Shauna. And I would just say the same thing I would say to anybody that has a strong partner, and that is pick your lanes and stay in your lanes. Be willing to take advice from each other, but just stay in your lane. And if you do that, you'll work so well together and you're gonna get further and have more success if you do that. But what a joy it is to work with your partner during the day and go home at night. We've made it work for 17 years now. We don't see it stopping anytime soon. And this is not gonna end in a divorce because we both hate each other after a long day's work. We love it. We love what we're doing, and I would just say to everybody, pick your lane, stay in your lane. People have a hard time staying in their lane, but if you can stay in your lane, you'll love it.
Yeah, similar. I'll give my perspective is, and she's bashful at this. I'm bashful. We admire each other. We look at each other with great admiration for our individual skill sets, our successes, how we do, not what we do, right? The integrity and the belief system that we both have individually and we share, and we literally compete with each other to to fawn in front of other people. If I talk about her, I will tell you she is, as an objective observer from the day I met her, and I've had over 1,000 employees in my career. She's the greatest employee I've ever seen of any company ever. There's just no, it's not even close. And I've watched her, and she has been rewarded, and she has been acknowledged, and she has been extremely successful in her career. But watching from over here, I'm in awe of all those things that make that person and make her that. Why wouldn't I want her on my team? Why wouldn't I want her helping build a legacy in a business, and of course our family, which she carries a lot of that burden. And similarly, which I can't handle, she says to me after being able to hear me half of the day, usually from I'm really loud and she can hear me upstairs in her office or hear me on calls as we're going about life, and she just looks at me and goes, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you know that. I don't She admires my skill and my expertise or area of understanding, or she admires my willingness to share and be give without expectation. So I just think there's that mutual admiration and mutual respect that
Respect.
there's nothing getting in between that. Really, it's just we just really have a good time and have a lot of fun. So I love it. I asked that for that. It's a selfish ask. I wanted that from you for selfish reason.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say, but, I was just listening to you. The words that you used, you can use those with your executive team. They don't have to be your family. They don't have to be your spouse. Um, you should look to your team with admiration. You should look to your team with respect. The cool thing for you and I working with our spouses and everybody else, I always tell people, you should work with them. It's so much fun. Is that you get to go home with them at night and share in, wow, look what we just did at work today or this month or this year, and celebrate with the person you love. That's the only difference, but should be the same with your team, whether they're your spouse or not.
Yeah, and by the way, it eliminates competition. You're not coming home and saying, "Look what I
Yeah,
did
it
today,"
does.
and she's going, "Look what I accomplished today."
Yeah,
And no, I
that's
did it.
right.
No, I did it. No, no, you know what? We did it together. Wasn't that awesome? How fun. High five. Let's pour a glass of wine and
So
watch
funny.
our favorite whatever show of the week it is, you know. Andrew K. Smith, Savory Fund, just one of the mensches of the entire industry. So glad to have you. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and experience. Thanks for giving without expectation on the Pineapple Perspective.
Always a pleasure, brother.
Thank you for listening to the Pineapple Perspective. If you loved today's episode, leave a review and a 5-star rating. I look forward to welcoming you back next time.